Haven't done this for a while. I have to turn on the mic. Good afternoon and welcome to the Committee of Adjustment hearings for the Urban Panel for the City of Ottawa. We are in Ottawa's quasi-judicial tribunal that holds public hearings to consider Planning Act applications, including minor variances to the zoning requirements and consents to sever land. Our hearings are now here at Ben Franklin Place, 101 Centerpoint Drive. We also enable remote participation by video conferencing for our registered speakers. We are live streaming on YouTube, and the video will be archived and available for future viewing by the public. My name's John Bladderwick. I'll be chairing today. With me today are my fellow members Heather McLean and Arthur Kiklickian, and online we have Anne Tremblay and Simon Coakley. The procedure for the hearings will be as follows, listed on the agenda and appearing on the screen from time to time of the applications we'll hear today. For the sake of efficiency, we may deal with the agenda items in a different order. Panel members have reviewed the planning reports and any written submissions in support or in opposition to each of the applications. Today, we'll hear any oral submissions relating to the applications. The panel may ask for a brief presentation of an application, followed by questions for the applicant and city planning staff. We will then hear from members of the public who have registered to speak, and we may also have questions for them. Finally, the applicant, who has the burden of proof, will have an opportunity to make the final comments in reply. Please address your comments to me as the chair, starting with your name and spelling it if necessary, and your municipal address for the record. All presentations are limited to 5 minutes, and any exceptions will be at the discretion of the committee. At the end of the hearing, the panel may either make an oral decision or we may reserve our decision, which means it won't be delivered today. In either case, and within 10 days, the Committee of Adjustment will send the official written decision and reasons for it to all parties, participants, and anyone else who has requested a copy. Does anyone have any questions regarding the procedure we'll be following today, either here or online? Okay, seeing none. Right. We have some procedural matters we need to deal with first. First of all, for the members of the panel, are there any declarations of interest for the items we're dealing with today, or the items that have already been dealt with by the other two panels this week? Seeing none. All right. We have no minutes to confirm. I don't believe there's any withdrawal requests. We do have several adjournment requests, and we'll begin with those. And the first adjournment request we'll deal with is 451 Roosevelt Avenue. Item number 4 on the agenda. I believe it's Mr. Freeman, who is the agent.
Good afternoon, Chair.
Good afternoon. Your address for the record, please.
It's 420 O'Connor Street in Ottawa.
And I believe that was the planning department that requested the adjournment. So if they could articulate their request for the adjournment, please.
Happy to. So the reason for the adjournment is that we flagged 2 potential variances, one being over the eaves projecting, and the other one being the roof height greater than the non-complying rights over the existing portion of the building. We did have some conversations with the applicant prior to the report, and we believe there are going to be some revised plans and elevations coming, which may eliminate variance or add variances.
All right, thank you. So you're in agreement, Mr. Freeman?
Yes, we agree with the adjournment request. We would request it sine die to allow us to revise our plans as necessary.
Yeah, I think we agree. All right, any questions from the panel regarding this adjournment? Comments? All right, all in favor of adjourning this application, sine die? All right, your application is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
You're welcome. Second item up for adjournment is item number 6 on the agenda, 433 Everett Avenue. Ms. Hill is the agent for the applicant, and this request was put in by the Westboro Community Association. Members of the association here, I believe, today.
It's Tim Gray, Timgray, 190 West Village Private, and with the Westboro Community Association. We spoke with Ms. Hill on Monday about the front yard parking, and she understands our concern. They're trying to save the tree in the backyard, and she was able to set up a meeting with her arborist on Friday, so we could do a site visit and kind of go over things and see if we could kind of come to some kind of arrangement that we could support if they can't get the parking in the rear yard, that we could work on trying to get something where the Westboro Community Association would support the front yard parking with some serious conditions. That doesn't mean that you people will support it, but we'd just like to work with her a little bit for 2 weeks to be able to do that.
Thank you. Miss. And the agent. Miss-
Hello, yes, Rosalind Hill, representing the client. And yeah, we've arranged this meeting with our arborist for Friday, and we are happy to just take some time out to make sure that everyone has the information that they need, and perhaps to modify our proposal in order to accommodate or respond to concerns. We think of these things as relatively small in the design project as a whole, and hope that we can adjourn for only 2 weeks.
Well, we have space on the November 20th agenda.
That's great.
2 weeks, if 2 weeks is adequate.
Absolutely.
Okay. Any questions or comments from the members of the panel? For this adjournment request? All right then.
Yeah, yes, Mr. Chair, I do have a question. I'm just worried that there might be a possibility that the changes to the site plan might necessitate more time than November 20th. I'm just wondering if we're looking at actually doing like some redesign, then like, I'm just worried that we're November 20th won't work for that. So can we hear from the applicant maybe what they would be willing to do?
Ms. Hill?
Yeah, so in our brief conversation so far, it seems that some of the potential outcomes would be eliminating that variance request and moving the parking, or retaining the parking and adding some additional landscape features to limit any scope creep on the parking as it is. So none of these would change any of the drawings in a significant way that I think would require recirculation, except if we eliminate a variance, in which case I don't think that requires recirculation.
So this, you don't assume that anything, you're going to have to be discussing this with the planning department.
No, we don't. No.
Yeah.
Probably.
All right. The only caution then, Mr. Chair, if possible, is to make sure that we get those revised drawings, not the day of the November hearing, November 20th hearing, please. That'd be much appreciated.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Any other comments from the members of the committee? All right. Regarding adjourning the 433 Everett application to November the 20th, all in favor? All right. Your adjournment is
Thank you.
See you in a couple of weeks.
Thanks.
Thank you. And the next adjournment we're dealing with today is item 7 on the agenda, 478 Dawson Avenue. And this was an adjournment requested by the planning department, and the agent is a Cordina.
Mr. Chair, the agent has confirmed they're agreeable to sine die and are not attending today.
Okay. All right. And this, just very briefly, with the nature of the reason for the adjournment.
Thank you, Chair. Planning staff flagged several variances that were missing from this application. If the committee's interested, I could tell you what sections in that, but if not,
No,
I will
that's fine.
decline.
So that's a sine die adjournment, I'm assuming. Any questions or comments from the members of the panel? All right. Regarding 478 Dawson Avenue, because there are additional variances identified, we will adjourn this sine die. All in favor? And that was the list of adjournments. However, in discussion with the other members that are at our pre-meet, we determined that there might be a need for an adjournment regarding item 8 on the agenda, 242 Park Street. So if Mr. Geddes is there. Good afternoon. It's all right. The clocks went back in the weekend. You have an excuse. Rusty Green, but yeah. There you go.
So thank you for having us here today. So you did mention that
And you are, sir?
Frankie Geddes
Okay, and your address?
and my
Address?
evidence
Address.
address. 295 Timberland Terrace.
You're aware of the planning department's response to your application
Yes, we are.
and the fact that they have concerns
Yes.
regarding the application. And actually, Ms. Tremblay, I think would probably be the best to articulate the committee's concerns regarding this application.
Happy to, Mr. Chair. So, Mr. Geddes, the committee has seen, in the spirit of intensification in the city has seen an awful lot of applications for similar type of development. And what we've seen is, I would say more tolerance for tight site development. And so staff in those cases have generally been in support. So here we have a report from staff saying they have some concerns. So when we see that in the context of a lot of similar applications that we've seen that they did support, this raises a lot of flags for us. So the discussion that the committee had prior to this hearing was to see whether or not it would be worthwhile for more discussion with planning staff in order to determine whether or not some added site functionality could be improved. So I'll leave it there, Mr. Chair, and get a response from our applicant.
Thank you, Ms. Tremblay. Mr. Geddes?
So yes, we are aware of the concerns that the city has addressed. I actually did attend ready to present if that was okay for today. Yeah, so I'll have my colleague Najmin here as well, and our architect James to assist me within the presentation if I do miss anything that we had put together. I'm not sure if the slide would be presented at the front here that we submitted.
No, we're not hearing the presentation right now.
Oh,
We're
okay.
asking you about the adjournment and whether or not you'd be amenable to one.
Okay, so this discussion is regarding
for the discussions with staff.
Okay, and when would we be adjourning to?
We have space on the November 20th agenda.
The November 20th agenda. Do you mind if I just take one quick second to confirm?
Certainly.
Mr. Chair, if I might, I'm worried that their November 20th may be too soon based on some of the concerns that were raised by staff. So I don't know if we have room on the December, but I would be probably inclined to consider that date over the November 20th date.
May I ask a question? Is the additional concerns more than what we already received prior to us attending today?
No, they've been articulated by staff in their
Yes.
report, which you have a copy of.
Exactly. Yeah. So those are the concerns that we addressed. There's no new concerns other than that.
Yeah.
Okay. And the second date that you proposed, Madam Chair, was
December 6th,
December 11th.
December 11th.
okay. Yes. December 11th would work for us.
All right, then. Staff are in agreement that this would be of some use. Further discuss.
Yes, we are. Thank you, Mr. Blatherwick.
Okay. All right, Mr. Geddes, thank you very much for being amenable to a slight hitch in your plans, but I think it will, quite frankly, be a benefit to you.
Perfect. Okay.
And so with that, December 11th, same time,
Okay. Perfect.
same place. First of all, any comments from the members regarding the adjournment on this application? Okay. Thank you, Ms. Tremblay, for your input. All right, so an adjournment of this.
Mr. Chair, we have Ms. O'Connell with her hand up.
Oh, okay, Ms. O'Connell, please.
Hello?
Hi there.
Oh, sorry about that. I didn't realize I was muted. Just wanted to point out that we would suggest that the applicant reach out to the staff member Penelope Horn directly to discuss those concerns and set up some discussion. Just wanted to make sure that they were aware of the onus is on them to do that, to initiate that discussion.
Okay. Yes. We are in contact with Penelope Horn, so I can do that for sure.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Thank you, Mr. Connell. All right, then with that, the adjournment of 242 Park Street application to December 11th, all in favor? All right. This application is adjourned. We'll see you in December.
Okay. Thank you. Have a good day.
Okay. That covers the adjournment applications for today. We have several applications before us, which can be dealt with very quickly. These are no contest applications. The criteria the committee uses, I'll just read these out, is that there are no objections or concerns from the parties or the public regarding the application. No amendments are required. There's no registered speakers. Signposting declaration has been received. The applicant or their agent has confirmed that they agree with all the requested conditions, if any, and there are no questions from the panelists. And we have two applications like that today. And the first one is application number 448 Bronson Avenue. And I think it's Edwards is the agent for the applicant.
Yes, Mr. Chair, members of the panel, my name is Dexter Edwards, DEXTOR EDWARDS. So I'm the agent on behalf of the client for that site.
Welcome to the panel, Mr. Edwards. Do you have any comments at all regarding this application?
None.
All right, thank you. All right, with that, like I said, the committee has reviewed the application and we are in agreement with it. And with that, for 448 Bronson Avenue, all in favor of any comments from the members of the panel? No, I don't believe so. All in favor of granting this application? Your application is granted. Good luck with your project.
Good, thank you.
The second application, which is on the short list, is 551 Edison Avenue. I believe Mr. Segreto is the agent. Mr. Segreto.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, committee members.
All right. We have one question regarding this application. There are 3 orders to comply issued for the site. Have those been dealt with?
My understanding is that the owner contractor is dealing with them and they're working them out.
Okay.
But that's my understanding, yes.
So they're being resolved.
That's correct.
Okay. I don't believe there's any questions from the panel regarding this application. All right, so for the application for 551 Edison Avenue, all in favor of the application as presented? All right, your application is approved, Mr. Segreto. Good luck with your project.
Thank you so much.
Right. Okay. Now I'm into the regular part of the application where there will be some discussion on these applicants or applications. The first one is number 2 on the agenda, 112 Mary Avenue, and Mr. Sun, I believe, is the agent.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is architect Changson, and live in the 33 Willow Glen Drive. I'm going to present for this application on the behalf of the owner.
Okay. So this is an application to permit a reduced lot width and lot area for the construction of a 3-story low-rise apartment building with 8 residential units.
Correct.
Okay. And if you'd like to give a very brief presentation on your application, please.
Sure. This address, this property is located 112 Mary Avenue. It's in the Vanier neighborhood. It's close to the Montreal Road and Vanier Parkway, and close to downtown. And it's close to the public transit. Currently, it's one single house. So we would propose demolish the single house and build a low-rise apartment, have 8 units. So we are pursuing 2 minor variants. One is reduce minimum lot width.
Okay.
Second one is reduce minimum lot area.
Okay.
Even with these 2 minor variants, we still satisfy all of the front yard, side yard, front yard and rear yard and side yard setback requirement. And also we meet the landscape, soft landscape at the rear yard and front yard. And also the building height will be the lower the maximum building height required by building code. And we also include 1 beer-free apartment unit. So we provide more rental units in this urban neighborhood and support the public transit. So I can see this opportunity to intensify housing market and provide a rental housing unit. That's it.
You've addressed the 4 tests very well in your presentation. Thank you for that. That helps. We note that there's concerns from one neighbor regarding foundation issues, but that, as you know, is not within our purview, and that basically is an issue that's between property owners. But you're aware of that neighbor's concerns?
Yeah, I received a comment from the city, and also I forward to my team, structural engineer.
Okay.
So for the next stage, building permit, will work with my structural engineer, will be to the design according to the standard.
Okay. Out of curiosity, how much amenity open space is being provided with this?
By zoning by law, is the rear yard is require 15% soft landscape. We are providing 55%, and front yard minimum landscape is 35%. We are provide 75%.
Okay, so you're providing in excess of the requirement of the bylaw.
Yes.
Okay. All right. And I see that you have a waste and recycling facility which is enclosed at the rear.
Yes, as it's the rear yard, and we provide closer for the screens.
Okay.
Yeah.
And bicycle parking on site as well.
Correct. For bicycle parking space at the rear yard as well.
But no vehicle parking because you don't have to.
Yes, because this site is only about 276 square meter. According to new bylaw, is any site less than 450, it doesn't allow to parking on site at all.
All right. Any other members of the panel have any questions or comments regarding this application? Is there anyone in the audience or online who wishes to comment on this application for 112 Marier Avenue? Okay. That then maybe proceed to the vote on this application. All right. All in favor of the application at 112 Marier Avenue, reduce lot width and lot area for the construction of a 3-story low-rise apartment building with 8 residential units. All in favor? Okay, no one opposed. All right, your application is approved unanimously. Good luck with your project.
Thank you.
Next application we'll hear, actually 2 applications, number 3 and number 9, 314 Queen Elizabeth Driveway and 12nd Avenue. And it'd be Mr. Sewer and Mr. Chown, they're the agents for the applicants.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair.
Good day, gentlemen. We know where you live.
Perfect.
That's not a threat. This is back before us after being adjourned on the 18th of September to file some variances. The committee has reviewed this at our pre-meet, and we would definitely like a presentation on this application. There are a number of questions that panel members have. So,
Okay.
Floor is yours.
So I have a slide presentation, if we
Please.
can have that put up.
Yeah, that's fine.
So good afternoon, Honorable Chair and members of the committee. My name is Arjun Soor. I'm with my colleague Murray Chown, and we have Mr. Michael Paulwin on the call with us as well. So I'll be presenting the minor variances and lot line adjustments for 314 Queen Elizabeth Driveway and 12nd Avenue. So if you go to the next slide. So this just shows the properties. The properties are located on the north side of 2nd Avenue and on the west side of Queen Elizabeth Driveway. Next slide, please. So 12nd Avenue is developed with a 2.5-story detached dwelling, and 314 Queen Elizabeth Driveway is developed with a 3-story detached dwelling. So the proposed lot line adjustments are to convey a 1.82 square meter portion of 12nd Avenue to 314 Queen Elizabeth Driveway, and to convey a 0.04 square meter portion of 314 Queen Elizabeth Driveway to 12nd Avenue. And so what these lot line adjustments do is they'll help clean up that shared property line between the detached garage on both properties and provide additional space in front of the garage for 314 Queen Elizabeth. So next slide, please. So we'll now go quickly to the rationale for the severances. So with respect to section 53(1) of the Planning Act, plan of subdivision is not required for the proper and orderly development of the municipality. With respect to 51(24) of the Planning Act, the development has regards for matters of provincial interest, including the efficient use of land and resources. The lot line adjustments adjust an existing lot line and consequently are not premature and are in the public interest. The properties are designated Rideau Canal Special District in the OP. The intent of that designation is for development to respect the existing building footprints, height, massing scale, setback, and landscape character. The lot line adjustments do not impact building footprints, height, massing scale, setback. And the lot line adjustments meet section 11.5 of the official plan as they do not result in the creation of a new lot, and both lots comply with the minimum lot area and lot width requirements after the adjustment. The lot line adjustments clean up the shared property line between the garage, so the lot line follows a shared building wall that separates the garages and provides additional space in front of the garage for 314 Queen Elizabeth driveway. Adequate municipal services are available, and the lot line adjustment doesn't result in any additional units or affect the adequacy of school sites. So the consents meet the criteria 5124 of the Planning Act. And finally, consents align with the PPS. So next slide, please. So this slide in front of you just shows the requested variances which pertain to 314 Queen Elizabeth driveway.
And just to be clear, these are the same variances that were granted in 2023.
So we have a variance that was for a reduced rear yard setback that was initially applied for in May 12th, I want to say, or the hearing was on May 12th. For a reduced rear yard setback of 0 meters, a reduced rear yard area of 0%, and a reduced interior side yard setback of 0.0 meters. So since then, the lot line adjustment is creating an additional space. And because that garage is going to be expanded to use that additional space, we now needed, even though that variance was approved, staff identified that we needed another variance for reduced rear yard setback and rear yard area. Okay. And then for the interior side yard setback as well.
Okay. Okay.
So if we could go to the next slide. So this slide just shows what the expansion that I was just talking about will look like. And so the green hatching shows the areas that are going to be expanded for the garage. And so as I identified before, the site is designated Rideau Canal Special District within the inner urban transect. The variances for reduced rear yard setback, reduced rear yard area, and reduced interior side yard setback relate to the expansion of the garage in the rear yard. The existing garage is already located in the rear yard and is already set back 0 meters from the northerly interior lot line and 0 meters from the rear lot line. The expansion of the garage adds 0.97 meters of additional space, and then a 0 meter setback to that interior lot line is proposed. And so the reduced, if I can get more time, I'll try and make it quick. So the reduced rear yard setback, rear yard area, and interior side yard setback don't affect the pattern of building footprint, height, massing, scale, and landscape character. So they meet the general intent and purpose of the OP. The second test is that the general intent of the zoning bylaw is maintained. So the site's zoned R3Q exception, or subzone R3Q exception 1474. The requested variances support the planned expansion of the garage and maintains the residential character of the neighborhood, which aligns with the intent of the R3 zone. A minor variance application, as I was referring to, was heard on May the 3rd to permit a reduced rear yard setback of 0 meters and a reduced rear yard area of 0% of the lot area, and the committee's decision dated May 12th granted the minor variances for the reduced rear yard setback and rear yard area. So variance C, which requests the reduced interior side yard setback of 0 meters. As I mentioned, the existing garage is set back 0 meters from the rear lot line already, and the lot line adjustment will add 0.97 meters of additional space, and then the garage will then be expanded towards that lot line in order to accommodate a modern vehicle. And so the reduced interior side yard setback, as I said, adds that additional space to accommodate the vehicle, and this meets the intent of the zoning bylaw. The third test is that the variances are desirable for the use of land. As I said, it provides additional space for that vehicle, which is consistent with the residential use of the property and improves the functionality of the home. And so from that perspective, it is suitable and desirable for the use of land. And finally, the fourth test is that it's the variances are minor in nature. And so, as I mentioned, the existing garage already has 0 meter setback from the rear lot line, and the rear yard already has is 0% of the lot area. And so from that perspective, the proposed expansion doesn't have any impact on that. The reduced interior side yard setback of 0 meters doesn't adversely impact the abutting property at 1 Second Avenue. That space in front of the garage that's being given to 314 Queen Elizabeth driveway is already being used for access to a driveway. And so there's no additional impact that comes from adding that space to 314 Queen Elizabeth driveway and using it in the same way. Furthermore, the expansion of the garage is limited, as you see on the slide, to the southerly and easterly expansions, which doesn't impact the neighbor to the north any more than the existing condition. I want to reiterate that no additional height is being proposed for the garage with this application. There's no stackable garage being proposed with this application. And as indicated in the staff report, surface stormwater runoff must be self-contained and not directed onto abutting private properties. And grading and servicing is something that's going to be reviewed during the building permit process, which staff have indicated in the report. And so the variances are considered minor in nature. Next slide, please. So just to wrap it up, the proposed lot line adjustments meet the criteria of 53-1 and 51-24 of the Planning Act, and the variances for 314 Queen Elizabeth driveway meet the 4 tests under 45-1 of the Planning Act. Thanks.
Thank you. You're aware of the conditions that are being requested? The relocation of services from hydro. Our standard conditions, lot line adjustment, confirmation of approved minor variance application, no longer subject to appeal, registered reference plan confirming frontage and lot area of the severed lands, and electronic registration and preparation documents for certificate of official. That's standard stuff for us. Right.
So we're aware of the hydro conditions. We received those, and those standard conditions, we don't see them in the staff report, but we are aware of them and we understand them.
All right. Thank you. I do believe there are some questions from panel members, and I think Ms. McLean had some questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just wanted to get some clarification. So I'll start with the severance applications. Is the garage at 1 second, it's a wall? There's not 2 abutting walls for the garage at 314 Queen and the one at 1 second? Is it just one wall that belongs to 1 second, or?
So I don't want to misspeak here, but my understanding is that it's not one wall, but they're just a shared wall. So there's the wall of 1 Second Avenue's garage, and then 314 Queen Elizabeth as well. And basically that 1 Second Avenue comes out a little bit. And so the 314 Queen Elizabeth garage is going to be brought forward. And there's an entrance, obviously, to 1 Second Avenue's garage that's going to be removed. So they would have its own separate wall there. The issue, I think, with the wall is in relation to the property to the north.
I think just the conveyance of part 2, to 1 Second Avenue, that wall is on the draft reference plan. I think it's on page 4 of your cover letter. That wall belongs to the garage at 1 second. And so the proposed severance of part 2 is the garage wall for 1 second. And there's no other wall there for the other garage at 314.
That is my understanding, but it might help if the committee assistants could put up the draft power plan. I'm not sure which slide that is, Mr. Sewer.
Number 2, page 2, or
In terms of the slide deck, I think
the draft reference plan.
I think the draft reference plan detail is on slide 11.
So this one here, part 2. Okay. So part 2 runs along a wall.
That is correct. So it's running along the outside edge of the existing wall for the garage at number 1 Second Avenue.
And there's no garage wall for 312 Queen.
Similar to the situation where there's really no garage wall on the north side of this garage. My understanding from our discussions with the surveyor are that this garage also ties into the garage at 314 Queen Elizabeth driveway ties into the existing wall of the garage at 1 Second Avenue. There's only one wall. It's basically built as a lean-to, quite frankly.
And my next question is for the conveyance of part one. At the front of the existing garage at 314, the conveyance of part one, there appears to be an eave associated with the garage at 1 Second Avenue that sits on the land that's going to be conveyed to 314. So are you removing that eave?
Ms. McLean, you never fail to ask that question. The expectation is that there will be renovations to both garages and will eliminate that encroachment. Thank you for the question.
No, thank you. And then just with regard to the variances, variance A to permit a reduced rear yard of 0 meters. So is the existing garage at the rear of 314 Queen Elizabeth, it's being attached, it's going to become an attached garage? And so that rear yard is at the wall of 1 Second? Am I right on that?
Can we put up once again, the slide with the green highlighting?
It's just
So
if we
slide
tied, if
7.
we tied it to the life of the building, if we tied that rear yard variance to the life, are we talking about, we're talking about the attached garage now, because it's going to be attached physically to the house?
It is, and so I appreciate where you were going. We were going to suggest to the committee that you make the variances or tie the variances to plans rather than to the life of the building, but tie the variance to plans.
But there's no plan for that rear yard, right? That's an existing, that's the wall between the garage for 1st, 2nd, and so that's abutting, and that's
Correct.
That's that variance A.
Correct.
Is it a rear yard for the whole property then?
Yes.
And then, so the rear yard area would be the same, and then the side yard setbacks on the north is to Mr. Weston's property.
Yes.
That's an existing situation.
Yes.
And the eastern side yard, where are we talking about on the eastern side yard of the garage?
So there are
Is down to 0 meters.
there is no eastern side yard for the garage because the garage is going to be attached to the house. There's a 0 meter north side yard, which is the existing condition.
So that could be for the life? There's nothing you're building on that attaches to Mr. Weston's property?
Correct. As I said, my preference, I think, would be that you tie it to plans rather than life of the building, but it's in your hands. So there's an interior side yard setback on the north, which is 0, which exists today. What triggered the application was the proposed addition to the garage, which extends the front of the garage to the interior side yard, which is south of the garage, which is the green you're seeing here. There are 2 other interior side yards on this property. There's the interior side yard on the south side of the house. And then there's the interior side yard, which is just that area between where you see the handicap symbol and the property line above it. That is also an interior side yard. There are 4 interior side yards on this property because of its shape. But what triggered the minor variance was the addition to the front of the garage to extend to the new lot line after the lot addition. That's what triggered the request for the minor variance for the interior setback.
So the variance C says north and east. So is the east side yard the addition at the front of the
Sorry,
garage?
It should be north and south. If the notice says north and east, I apologize for not picking up on that. It should be the north and south.
And the south relates to the addition to the front of the garage?
Yes. And just to be fully transparent, we don't think we need either of those as you say, the north is an existing condition, legally non-conforming. The bylaw actually does not prohibit an interior side yard setback of 0 meters. We had a fair bit of discussion with staff on this, but the way the bylaw is written is there's a minimum total of 1.8, and there's a minimum requirement that one interior side yard be at least 0.6. We actually meet those requirements without the variance. So the variance has been applied for in the abundance of caution because staff aren't terribly comfortable with the way the bylaw is written and the way it should be interpreted. So this variance is in the abundance of caution in order to address some of the concerns from Mr. Weston. I think you should approve the variance and tie it to drawings so that he has the level of comfort that our client isn't going to build up to his house everywhere. But we're not going to do anything if you tie it to the drawings.
Okay, and I guess I think that's the clarification I was just looking for on it. I guess the elevation drawings. So I couldn't see on the elevation drawings what was occurring. There seems to be construction going on there as well. Yeah.
Yeah, the renovations to the house are progressing based on the approvals that the committee already gave to our client.
Okay.
We're only back now to deal with the efforts on our behalf of our client to, one, extend the garage ever so slightly, and two, to allow for the connection. But yeah, the renovations are well underway.
And is that connection just a one-story connection, or? And the front is just I couldn't tell from the elevations sort of. What's the size of the extension at the front of the garage? Do we know that, or?
The extension at the front of the garage
Yes.
is coming forward. It's 0.97 meters. So it's going straight to it's a 0.97 meters of additional space in front of the garage, and it's being extended to be flush with that lot line.
With that that newly acquired part 1?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McLean. So we have an amendment to the requested variances to permit a reduced interior side yard setback on both the north and south sides of the garage instead of the north and east.
If that's what the notice says, we didn't review it. Our apologies for that, for whether it said that, but
Mr. Chown was mentioning that.
Yeah, if the notice says north and east, it should say north and south.
We'll amend that to north and south.
Please.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Anything further, Ms. McLean? Okay. Mr. Coakley, you have some questions or comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think you probably answered my question. Basically, I'm just trying to connect the dots between the variances that were granted in May 23, and I'm afraid I don't remember whether I was on that panel or not at the time. I mean, I was on the panel. I don't remember if I was at that hearing, and what you're asking today. So if I understand correctly, because you've been able to negotiate, arrange, pick your verb there, this property transfer, you now have the ability to push the garage even further. So we had originally said you could go to here. Now you've got this much space and you want to go to there. Am I kind of understanding the dynamic correctly?
That's it in a nutshell, sir. That's absolutely.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Coakley. Any other members of the panel wish to comment or have concerns regarding this application? Okay. And the planning department is okay with this application as amended?
Yes, that is correct, Mr. Blatherwick.
Any members of the public that are present at the hearing or online who wish to comment? And I know we have, other than Mr. Weston, I know he wants to speak. All right, Mr. Weston there.
I am, Mr. Chair.
All right, Mr. Weston, you have some current concerns. We have your letter and we've reviewed it. And just if you would just briefly explain your concerns with this application.
Okay, well, if I'm first of all, apologize. Thanks to Air Canada, I'm stranded in a lounge. So the elevator and music in the back and other noises, I apologize for having to subject you to them, but not much I can do. And this was too important for me to miss it. So I appreciate it if you bear with me. I've lived there for 40 years, and every single year that I have been there, there have been maintenance issues that go with a building that's 112 years old. Part of that is due to the softness of the brick. It's over a century old. The foundations are stone rubble. They're very delicate. You have to be careful about how you seal them and don't seal them. Everything takes maintenance. And so part of my concern, and I'll register it as a concern, is my ability to access those foundations and access the brick on my building. When I appeared before the committee 18 months ago, the applicant had applied to zero virtually everything on the property. I think there were only 2 out of 7 requests that to zero that were rejected by the committee, and one of those was the side yard setback. Part of the reason for that was the applicant wanted to what the only open space left on the property was the space between the 2 buildings, and they wanted to deck that right out to abut onto my front porch, all the way back to the garage, which on your drawings you will see is virtually the entire north boundary of the applicant's property and the south boundary of mine. I was grateful that the committee opted to make that one of their 2 exceptions, and stated very firmly that they felt that this was all overdevelopment and not in the interest of anybody. One of my main objections was I wouldn't be able to access my foundations, and that decking would form a kind of moisture trap, which would only compound the problems of trying to keep a house like mine going. My concern with the garage, I accept reluctantly that legacy rules, and that I was kind of shocked a couple of months ago after being there for 40 years. I had always assumed that the garage was just abutting onto my wall. I was kind of shocked when I saw inside for the first time that my wall was actually staring at me through the back part of it, and had cupboards hanging from it and other things. So I accept that it's there, and I'm sure I can work with the applicant to make sure that somehow we maintain those. I'm concerned with the applicant's comment that the committee be guided by plans and not the life of the property. My objection to granting the side yard setback to zero on the legacy part is, and the side is exactly what, if not this owner, maybe a future owner, somebody else can do without coming back to the committee. And my concern is that if you grant that zero side yard setback, in a nutshell, that for one thing, it may not be contained just to the garage. The garage is about to become part of the house. There will be one contiguous building. Does that mean that the side yard setback only goes for part of the building or whatever? And I have to confess, I was utterly confused by the argument about having little yards and big yards and cumulative setback. That's beyond my pay grade, I'm afraid. But it raises a concern. So I'm not concerned with what is. I am concerned with what could be without coming back to this committee. I have all faith in this committee that they would not allow, as they didn't in the past, for this to become scope creep. Somebody mentioned earlier on, I like that word. And I see I'm out of time. So I'm asking for two things. Number one is the applicant is saying they only want that north side 0 side yard setback out of an abundance of caution. I am asking the same thing out of an abundance of caution that it not be granted. And that if they want to do something else with the garage in future, that they have to come back to the committee for that to happen. The second thing is I don't know whether it's within the scope or the power of this committee to do it, but the lot line adjustment and the wall that's involved is attached to my house as well. And as such, I'm wondering in granting the variance to, quote, fix the askew alignment with the lot line and that wall, that somehow I be included in a common wall agreement, or that there be a common wall agreement that allows that to happen. Again, all that's is doing is allowing me to have some official input into what happens to my wall on that side of the building. Lastly, and it seems like a minor thing, but it's actually a very expensive and costly thing. The previous owner allowed me, when I did kitchen renovations, to put my kitchen exhaust vent through that wall. It is about 27, 28 inches above the current roof. And so obviously any increase in the height of that roof or change in that roof would cause me to redirect it due to the construction of my house, which is 2x16 timbers. It's not a small effort. It would actually have to be rerouted through either up to the second story or out the back, both of which are I've had contractors look at it, and it's a costly thing to do. So my concern is not with what's there now, and I'd have no concern with their extending their garage 2 or 3 feet past it. I'm concerned that we don't do something today that opens the door for future plans should they change from the current drawings without having to come back to this committee. And finally, I'm reassured that by the comments from the city that a drainage plans will be required for whatever is happening here, because that has been an ongoing for 30 years. A lot of my upkeep has been caused by water from that property flowing into my foundations. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Weston. And good luck on your flight home.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Toronto Pearson, oh joy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right. Thank you very much for your input, Mr. Sewer or Mr. Chan. How would you like to respond to the budding residents' comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Weston, for your comments. And I'll just respond to the 3 asks at the very end of Mr. Weston's presentation. Actually, I'll respond to 2 of them, and I'll ask Mr. Paulowin to respond to 1 of them. Mr. Weston wants to be sure that any future development requires some kind of an approval, and quite possibly from this committee. I appreciate he probably didn't understand what I meant by tying in approval to plans, but the effect of doing that is exactly what he's asked of the committee. If you tie the minor variance approval to the plans submitted, then no development can occur in that required interior side yard between 312 Queen Elizabeth Drive and 314 Queen Elizabeth Drive without coming back to the committee. So what I've suggested the committee provides the assurance that Mr. Weston is seeking with respect to what might happen in the future. With respect to the kitchen vent, Mr. Weston has mentioned that a number of times in his submissions. Once again, if you tie the approval to drawings, our drawings indicate what the height of the garage is. And so if you tie the approval to the drawings, the garage cannot be increased in height and impact that exhaust for his kitchen. With respect to a condition that would require our client to enter into a common wall agreement with Mr. Weston, I would suggest that's probably beyond your authority and jurisdiction, but if you'd like an opinion from Mr. Paulin on that, he is available.
Certainly.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Common wall that exists between Mr. Weston's property and the applicant is an existing condition, and there is no variance sought with respect to that common wall. As such, I would respectfully submit that it is beyond the authority of this committee to seek a condition that relates to something that is not before the committee. Further, I would also be of the view that it is beyond the authority of the committee to effectively give an unrelated party a veto over what is going on, requiring an agreement, for example, with the city, not on a common wall, but in another circumstance, is certainly within the purview of the committee. But requiring an agreement with a next door neighbor on anything would strike me as being beyond the authority and inappropriate delegation of authority by this committee. And in particular, where the neighbor has already indicated concerns with what is before you. That does not mean that, for example, the parties could not of their own accord find a basis for agreement on the use of that common wall. But that is a situation which has been in place for decades. And today, the use of a common wall would certainly be my advice of a client that it would be in their best interest to negotiate such an agreement. Thank you.
Now that we have you online, Mr. Paulin, can an agreement like that be made binding on current and future owners?
Yes, sir. Basically, what you do is you'd style it, pardon me, and I've done this before. You'd style it as an easement for support, and easements run with the land.
Yeah. Oh. Thank you, Mr. Paulin. Your input is always appreciated.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I think Miss McLean has a question. Possibly while you're still online.
Thank you either to Mr. Paulin and Mr. Chown. The garage that attaches to Mr. Weston's building, if the variance was not approved, what would happen?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that garage would continue in place.
So it has non-conforming or non-complying rights?
Yes, Ms. McLean, it has non-conforming rights.
And if it extends over the lot line, is there?
That would be an encroachment, Ms. McLean, and non-conforming rights would not apply to it. Having said that, given the age of the two structures, it is likely that, and I haven't looked at the title in this regard, but it is likely that a situation of adverse possession to the extent that either building it went over the lot line would have been created before lands went into land titles in the Ottawa area in or about 1996.
So if the variance is not approved, what impact does that have, Mr. Chowan, on the proposal? If that zero variance on the north side?
We don't need the variance on the north side. Once again, the application was filed in the abundance of caution to address comments raised by staff. It's my opinion, and you've heard from Mr. Paulin, that we don't need relief for the setback on the north side to the existing house. But the application also refers to the relief or reduction of the interior side yard on the south side of the garage. So if you refuse the application, then our client can expand the garage in a way that has no impact on anybody, but just is, for practical purposes, makes the garage functional. So I would hope that you will approve the application for the reduced interior side yard, just so it's tidy. And as I've suggested a number of times, tie the approval to plans so that Mr. Weston's concerns about the future can be addressed in a reasonable way. But I've told our client that we can probably get a building permit without the variances, but staff aren't fully on board with us on that. That's why we're here on that application on the interior side yards. We do need the variance on the rear yard setback because, as Member Coakley asked, and we replied that the initial application dealt only with that garage today on the property today. With the additional property and the additional garage, staff pointed out to us that we need to extend that variance to include, for the rear yard setback, to include the addition to the garage. I hope I'm clear.
I think so. Thank you.
Mr. Coakley.
Yeah, I wonder if somebody could I'm having a little bit of difficulty visualizing where each of these pieces sit in relation to each other. Is there a plan of
We could
where
put up
Mr.
the one with
Weston's
the green highlighting on it.
So where is Mr. Weston's property house in relation to this slide?
So, Member Coakley, his house is immediately to the right of the garage for 314 Queen Elizabeth Drive is highlighted. His house is underneath the label that says proposed connection to house, is underneath the symbol for the north. His house extends all down the right-hand side of this drawing from the back of the garage that's shaded slightly in gray or light blue.
So just so I make sure I'm understanding here, there's a line that's marked 3467, and then to the right of that is clearly the property line. His house is to the right of that, and that is the shared wall that we're talking about. Is that correct?
Yeah, towards the bottom right-hand corner, there's a label that says property line.
Yeah.
His house is immediately to the right of that line.
And runs all the way up to...
Yeah, up to just past the garage. You can see, I think highlighted on this, you can see the back of his house.
Okay, thank you. And maybe just not so much, just kind of a question, comment, observation to Mr. Paulo. And under adverse possession, presumably at least a piece of the land that you're planning to sever from 1 second, an argument could be made that that is covered by adverse possession if this garage has been in existence along the property line between 1 second and 314 Queen Elizabeth for a long time. Arguably, part of it is covered by adverse possession. Would that be a fair observation?
Again, Mr. Chair, through you, to the member, I have not done a title search on this, but 1 second is owned by the applicant. And so it's not an issue that would need to be resolved through a question of adverse possession. This is to clean up the lot lines, and to a certain extent, as Mr. Chown has said, to satisfy and make this cleaner for city staff.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Coakley. Any other questions from the panel on this application? Any members of the public who are online or in the hall wish to comment or have concerns? No. We've had a presentation from Mr. Weston. I'm hoping he's still listening.
I am. Thank you.
No other concerns for the members, gentlemen? Take a minute or so and just wrap up, please, if you would.
Mr. Chair, I don't have any wrap-up comments. I think I've provided enough comments during the discussion and the Q&A that we've had. I think we're fairly clear on what our position is to a large extent what's before you. The lot addition applications are totally independent of the minor variance applications. The minor variance applications, the rear yard just extends an approval that the committee already gave to the existing garage, so it applies to the addition, and the interior side yard setback applications are filed in the abundance of caution. And to address Mr. Weston's concerns, we would suggest you tie any approval to the drawings filed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chown. I think what the committee is going to do is we're going to reserve on this application.
To be expected. Thank you.
And you will have our decision in your hands a week Friday. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Next application we'll deal with is item 11 on our agenda, 455 Dawson Avenue. Mr. Gelkatzi. Please come forward. Gelkatzi, for the record, your address.
Mr. Chair, my address is 51 Rothwell Drive.
Thank you, Mr. Gelkatzi. So this is an application to permit reduced lot areas for the construction of a two-story semi-detached dwelling containing 6 units.
Correct.
Okay, so if you could give us a very brief presentation on the application, please.
Yes, I've got a presentation. That's not my presentation. Sorry.
We have everybody waiting for the presentation. I'm assuming that forestry is online. Just have a question on behalf of the committee.
Yes, I'm here.
Good afternoon, Ms. Young.
Afternoon.
On our comment sheet, we have a note that says the planning forester has concerns and requested an alternative location or method of installation be found and detailed in the TIR to retain the tree on site. Has that been resolved?
We have worked with the applicant and it appears that there is nowhere else on site that service can be placed. So they have revised the TIR to address that an alternative method of excavation is needed, that trenching is not an option here. So it's kind of as resolved as it can be at this point, but further information will be needed at the building permit stage.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Young.
You're welcome.
All right, Mr. Gelkowski, please.
Yeah. Just to quickly go ahead as fast as possible. This is in the inner urban transit area. It's in an evolving neighborhood. Next slide, please. This is a little unusual application in the sense that it was received by the committee, I guess about 3 years ago now, as noted on the plans there. The committee approved minor variance for lot area for a long semi to be permitted on this property. The rules have changed since then. And now a long semi is not permitted on a corner lot. So therefore, we're back in front of the committee for the same 2 minor variances that the committee approved previously. The other variances that were requested have been dropped. So those variances included a rooftop patio, height, a change in height. And so those parts have all been dropped. The only request you have before you right now is a minor variance for lot area for each one of the semis. There are no other minor variances being requested. Next slide, please. When we originally submitted the plans, we made an error and the plans had indicated a 1.2 meter side yard setback from the south property line. That has been subsequently revised to 1.5 meters as required by the zoning bylaw. Next slide, please. These are the adjustments that were made and the adjustment is circled in red. Next slide, please. The one area that we have had some good discussion with the city on, we did relocate, have the services relocated to the north by 0.6 meters. It's as far as we can relocate them based on the requirement that the services have to be inside the property line. They can't be on the right of way. The difficulty here is that the street to the east has no sewer on it. And so all sewer lines have to come off of the addressed side of the street. In the future, if the client chooses to sever the property, an easement will also have to be created as part of that process. But what I did was I did some research into the area of how do we work with trees in these circumstances, because it is a significant tree. And so I had an exchange of emails with Ms. Young, and I looked into hydrovac because her concern was that hydrovacking strips the bark off of the roots. And I looked at standard practices in other municipalities, and they have a specific requirement, which I've put in my presentation on the right side, that deals with reducing pressure when doing hydrovacking so that no bark would be removed from the exposed roots. And so we will be working with the city to have in place an arborist that will then supervise the excavation for that sewer line. So that was the one concern that the city had, and we agree with that and did our own research in that regard to find these existing standards. Unfortunately, the city of Ottawa does not have these standards at this time yet. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any questions from the panel regarding this application? right, we have comments from, you're aware of the comments from Nicole Dwyer, 462 Dawson. The proposal would be significant change to the character of the street would result in increase of parking, concern over infrastructure strain.
So Mr. Chair, through you, again, no parking is required at this location.
Yeah.
And the massing of the building conforms with the zoning bylaw fully in terms of height and setbacks. And the character of the lot typology is similar to the lot typology that is currently there. So really, in terms of the proposed character of this neighborhood under the zoning bylaw, which will obviously over the next 20 to 30 years change as homes change. But the height of this building is limited to a 2-story building. So it is actually very much in keeping with the height of the buildings in the neighboring area, and with no rooftop patio and porches and sloped roofs. It certainly would meet with the character style of the area.
And as far as you're concerned, there's adequate reserve capacity in both the sanitary sewer system and in the potable water supply.
As Mr. Chair, as usual, we expect that these are reviewed by city staff in terms of services, and they haven't given us any indication that they would have any concerns.
There's no requirement because of the type of development you're putting on this site for a stormwater management plan for the site.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, I didn't understand.
This type of development, this level of development on a corner lot, there's not going to be any requirement for any sort of a stormwater management plan for this property.
As usual, Mr. Chair, the stormwater management will be, or all surface water will have to be maintained with the lot grading and servicing plan. And we've gone ahead and at least looked at the lot grading and servicing plan prior to making application to the committee so that we can make those adjustments necessary, particularly in this case for the tree.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Jalkatsi. We have Ms. Williams online, I believe. She has some concerns regarding this application. Is she there?
Yes, I'm here. Are you able to hear me?
Yep. So you're at 491 Dawson Avenue, Ms. Williams?
Yes, I am.
Okay. All right. You have some concerns regarding this proposal?
Yes, I have several concerns. My first starts with the stormwater. As Jeff Leeper has described to me when I met with him, Dawson Avenue is described as having rural conditions. There are no stormwater services. We have ditches on the street, and there are ditches on Dawson and on Wesley. So the corner of Dawson and Wesley, in particular, floods from time to time. I myself have had to call into the city to get something done about it. So I understand from what you've just said, there's no stormwater management plan. However, where is the water going to go? Because there is nowhere for it to go, and it will be running across the roads and elsewhere. So I don't understand, when we have a street with rural conditions, how the stormwater issue can just be ignored when we don't have stormwater services. I'm not a city planner, so I don't know the answer to that, but I have a lot of concerns in that regard. And, also looking at the draft zoning bylaw, which obviously isn't in place yet, it's in draft, it states that we should be strengthening adequate water and sewer capacity. So here we have a lot that is going to now have 6 units, and that appears to me with no actual stormwater plan, because there is nowhere for stormwater to go other than the ditches. Secondly, Dawson Avenue is in terrible condition, mostly due to road cuts. It's, an area that's been under development. In the winter, the road becomes virtually impassable due to the road cuts and how much swelling and dipping it does. So with no parking provided for these 6 units, I have a lot of concerns where the people are going to park. And if they're on the street, it is only going to exacerbate the problem, particularly in the winter. I also have seen somewhere where there is supposed to be accessible and visitor parking provided. I maybe don't understand the bylaws, but there isn't. Third, I don't agree that it respects the existing character of the dwellings in the area. They are semi-detached, they're single detached homes and semi-detached homes with single residents in each. So to go from lots that are supporting 2 homes to 6 is quite a jump. Also looking at the draft comprehensive zoning bylaw, which speaks to climate resiliency, and that we shouldn't be reducing green space, especially when it comes to water absorption, and that intensification is supposed to conserve biodiversity and take into account the impacts of changing climate. This lot will be filled up by the building and is not supportive of that in any way. No matter what measures are taken in the building, I have concern for the tree, the large tree that arguably is in very rough condition. I believe that building this structure will already will impact and cause that tree to decline faster. So in conclusion, I understand the need for intensification, but a 6-unit dwelling with no accommodations for parking is not appropriate in a street that is in rural condition and is not up to urban standards without storm sewer drainage and is not taking consideration on any impacts on changing climate. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Just to confirm, Mr. Gilcazzi, there is no requirement for parking for your proposal.
There is no requirement for parking for the proposal.
And the 6 units in 2 dwellings is a direct result of the province passing Bill 23.
It's a combination of the city passing originally a bylaw with a primary and secondary unit, which would have permitted 4, and now permits primary and 2 additional units in 1 semi-detached dwelling. So we have 2 semi-detached dwellings, each with the permitted number of units in them.
It's your considered opinion that stormwater issues will be dealt with at the building permit stage when you submit your drainage, submit your drainage and grading plan.
The as usual, in terms of the committee's responsibility here, the city is responsible to maintain stormwater management properly in the city, and the condition of this in this location, my client is not seeking any minor variances for building massing or footprint or lot coverage, and is complying fully with all of the landscape requirements under the zoning bylaw. And so from that perspective, fully complies.
That's understood, Mr. Gilcazzi. Any questions from the committee regarding this application? Do you have any final comments, Mr. Gilcazzi, regarding your proposal?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, I think we've said enough. Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Oh, Mr. Coakley, please.
Just a quick question. Were you not to be proposing 2 semis? Were you to be proposing a construction of a sort of a single family dwelling? Would it, under your understanding of the bylaw limitations, would you be able to build something significantly larger than the actual building footprint you're proposing?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the only side yard requirement that would change would be the side yard to the south of the property, which currently under the bylaw is required to be 1.5 meters and would then only be required to be 1.2 meters.
So theoretically, you could build a structure slightly larger, but not significantly larger.
Correct, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Any further questions from the members of the panel? Are we ready to vote on this? We don't need to reserve. We don't need to reserve on this, those of you who are not here. All right. All right, in the matter of 455 Dawson Avenue, which is an application to permit reduced lot areas for the construction of a 2-story semi-detached dwelling containing 6 units All in favor of the application? Your application is unanimously approved. Mr. Gilkotze, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and panel.
And don't get up. Well, now deal with item 10 on the agenda, 259 Bradley Avenue. And this is an application to permit reduced lot areas and increasing driveway slopes descending to the rear of the property with easements for the construction of 2 long semi-detached dwellings with a total of 12 units in the buildings. Mr. Gilkotze, we need a presentation on this application. Like, as you know, there is opposition in the community and some concerns with what you're proposing. So,
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the presentation, please. Thank you. Next slide, please. So the property is located just north of Montreal Road, on an evolving neighborhood in the inner city transit area. It's currently, when you see what's circled there on the property, it is actually currently 2 lots. It was 2 lots in a underlying subdivision, and that severance has taken place as part of prior to this application. Next slide, please. This gives you an idea of the pattern of lots in the area and the character of the subject lot in the middle that's unlit. So this proposed, the existing 2 lots and the proposed long semi on each lot is completely in the lot pattern character of this neighborhood. Next slide, please. This gives you some idea of the neighborhood. This is an old neighborhood in Vanier as well. The zoning here is R4 UA, and this permits anything up to a low-rise apartment building. This will be an evolving neighborhood which will change dramatically over the next 20 to 30 years, as we would expect under the new official plan and under the new zoning bylaw that will probably apply as well in this location. Next slide, please. This gives you the context of the scale of the properties and the 2 buildings as they are located in this area. Next slide, please. There are 2 issues that we asked for the adjournment prior to this that we wanted to resolve in detail. One was, even though we're not required to have any parking, as you know from many of the concerns that the neighbors raise, parking is always an issue. They do want to see some parking. This is a difficult site from a parking perspective, so we had to look at it from 2 angles. One was, can we do some character and geometry of parking that also reflects and protects as much of the tree canopy in this area as we could? And this angled parking does specifically that. There's an old existing retaining wall at the back that was put in place after a storm in the past. That will actually be removed and be replaced with a series of retaining walls. These retaining walls, next slide, please. These retaining walls are done in such a fashion that trees that we have that are existing, particularly tree number 3, and possibly also tree number 5, are going to be able to be retained by creating this sort of semicircular area. The paving in this area where the parking will be all pervious parking, pervious pavement. So we'll let the water run through, and we will be actually raising the parking grade a little bit over top so that we don't have to disturb any of the undisturbed ground underneath. Next slide. Next slide, please. This application includes a request, obviously, for 2 easements to be created. Consent for 2 easements. This is not a request for severance, and that's why we have some concerns about some of the conditions requested. But we are creating 2 easements. The properties will continue to be 1 long semi on each property, each with 6 units in it. Next slide, please. Here's the park plan on that. Next slide, please. This shows you the green areas that we're able to retain and how we're able to retain space for the trees. Next slide, please. This is the servicing and grading. In this case, the grading plan. We actually have a servicing plan as well, and currently only 1 services plan. The owner of the property may choose not to sever it. The city has identified the issue that he will require a separate service for the rear semi-detached, as they do not permit services to continue underneath another existing building. And so that the lot grading and servicing plan will be changed for that. None of the retaining walls are over 1 meter in height. They're about 1.2 meters in height at the back. The grade change from the front to the back is almost 3 meters. So it's a significant grade change. That's why we have the request to put in a 12% sloped driveway with a heating underneath it, which will be part and parcel of it, because that's required once you do a 12% slope as part of the city's requirements. We can comply fully by doing this investigation with all of the other access requirements for private access onto the property. So effectively, we really are only looking at the 2 minor variances, each for lot area. We do realize it is a difficult site. The last resort, if we cannot come to an agreement with the municipality with regards to the driveway and the parking and the lot grading and plan, which is one of the conditions that you will see in your easement condition, the client would then simply eliminate the parking from the project. They much prefer, though, based on the feedback that they've had from the community, that to keep the parking in there until such time, of course, as Montreal Road gets better transit service. It complies with, next slide, please. Next slide, please. So it complies with the 4 tests in the sense that we're really only looking at minor variances for lot area. We're not looking for minor variances for lot width, only for lot area. And so this is also quite typical of the lot pattern that's in that neighborhood for a long semi-detached building. That the purpose of the zoning bylaw is maintained in the sense that a long semi is a permitted use in this zone, that it complies with the general intent of the official plan, both from the perspective of trying to maintain our 40% tree cover, as well as introducing a series of different units. So we primarily have 1-bedroom plus study and 2-bedroom plus study units in here. So it is a decent bedroom count. We do not have bachelors. We do not have 1-bedroom units in itself. So it adds to the housing stock, a more multi-usable property. Each of the units has individual entrances. So it has quite a I'll call it family feel. The idea is that you don't have these common areas in the buildings. We do provide for garbage at the rear as well, and we will be providing for bicycle parking within the units. It's our new policy from our company's perspective to provide parking internal, but we will also be providing some locking, what I call temporary lockup. So when you come home and you don't want to drag your bike into the house, you can lock up the bike on the property, but we have lots of room to do that. And lastly, in terms of the provincial policies, it supports them from the perspective of intensification gentle intensification inside the urban boundary. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gelkatzi. Looking at your site plan and considering the substantial slope from the street to the rear of the property, how are you going to handle stormwater?
So
we're going to flow to the rear of the property. Is there going to be a pumping station back there?
So we've spoken with the engineer that's doing the work. There are two options, and one option has been directly mentioned in the stormwater the servicing grading and servicing plan. It mentions a potential catch basin, which will then be pumped, or a dry well, and that will depend on the geotechnical. So we understand that we're going to have to deal with the stormwater on the site, and that we're either going to have to return the water to the water table as it is being done today. So similar to today. So without doing a stormwater management plan, we are going to effectively assess and size either the pump that's necessary, but if the geotechnical lets us do it, we're definitely going to go with a dry well. I actually had to provide the engineer with the information of how you do a dry well underneath the parking area, and you can. I provided them with that information.
But you haven't had the geotechnical assessment of subsurface to determine whether or not the water table will actually accommodate the stormwater going into that pit.
Yeah, we're going to have to satisfy the city from either one of the two perspectives. We know one of the two is feasible. So the pumped catch basin, doing a catch basin at the rear is quite practical and feasible. But my preference is to recharge the water table if we possibly can.
Because I'm very familiar with the one just up the street from me at the mini mall. Right, a dry well was put in a number of years ago to handle the water problems that would run off from that property.
Yeah.
A 5-minute rainstorm, that dry well is full.
Oh.
And overflowing down the street. So,
Mr. Chair,
yes.
just to comment, I did one 30 years ago.
Yeah.
In downtown Ottawa, and it's still functioning quite well.
Yeah. Well, hopefully this one will function better than the one that's up the street from me. Anyway. Okay, other questions from me, and then I'll open it up to the members of the panel. Looking at the colored rendition that I have, what we have, how much amenity open space have you got for 12 households at grade? You've taken most of it away with parking.
So, Mr. Chair, we've got 21 square meters on either side at the rear of the, and that's roughly 20%. That's a little bit over the 20%. Unfortunately, what we wanted to do is fully comply with, even though we don't have to, okay, with the requirements when you're doing a low-rise apartment building and you want to do congruent green space. This ends up being a triangular space, which is just as effective as the more rectangular space is. And so that's the approach that we used here.
Yeah, the performance standards would be different with a 6-unit apartment building, correct?
Sorry, Mr. Chair, I didn't.
If these were classified as apartment buildings, the performance standards would be different. Or any amenity space.
Yeah, so Mr. Chair, we have balconies for all of the units, so they have amenity space. And then we do have that space at the rear that we're saving for the trees and the green space that we have there.
Okay. Is there any plan to erect a solid sandwich board fence along the rear property lines and along the side property lines to prevent light spillover from parking vehicles?
So we have spoken with both neighbors on both sides of the property. One neighbor is here. He's concerned that his building comes right up to the property line, and my client has worked with them And we will work with the neighbors to do fencing appropriate to what their requirements are. Happy to do that.
To the neighbor that's directly behind?
I haven't spoken with the neighbors behind, but we will, I shouldn't say that. I did get an email. But the email was with regards to the stormwater issue that they had, the flooding that they had in the previous past. But we're certainly open, and as my clients always have, they will work with the neighbors to put up whatever type of fencing they would prefer.
Those people in the rear will have the advantage of vehicles driving all the way down that lot with their headlights on.
Mr. Chair, the difference here is that by going down the steep slope, the headlights actually go into the ground. So the only time that they'll shine right into people's yards unnecessarily would be when they make the turn into their flatter parking space. But we can definitely put up a fence at the end of each of the parking spaces with no difficulty.
So you're amenable to speaking to all three neighbors to affect that kind of a
Yes.
kind of a mitigation measure?
Yes.
Right. Okay. Okay. All right. I noticed one thing in the staff report on page 3, and it's the planning forestry section of the report. And it says here the impacts of the rear yard parking appear to be incompatible with retention of tree 6, which was omitted in the TIR previously submitted. And that's June 3rd. An updated TIR is required to assess the full impacts of the proposal and to provide adequate tree retention and protection measures. Has that been done?
Yes, we expect that we'll be updating that because what is written on the TRI report is draft, as you might recall. So there's more detail that will go into that plan as part of the application for the removal of the tree that's going to come. The neighbor to the east of the property has been in contact with my client together, and they've agreed for the removal. I've received an email from him indicating that there's an agreement that they'll have to have. Now, as part of the conditions for the consent for the easements, one of the conditions is that that agreement be in place for the trees, as well as the necessary upgrading of the TRI.
So that's the privately owned distinctive trees at 261 Bradley.
Correct.
So your applicant and the neighbor have come to an agreement on that.
Correct.
And the forestry department is awaiting your updated TIR.
Correct.
Which will be provided to them when?
Well, I don't know when the client is planning to apply for a building permit, but he's already started his building permit plans. So from that perspective, so he's looking forward to.
So the forestry department will receive that when the building permit application goes in?
No.
Before?
Sorry.
You said you're ready. He's beginning the process of applying for the plans to be approved. So the TIR will be in front of, will be produced or given to the forestry people at that point.
They will be, I will provide it to we will provide it to the city along with the building permit application and all of the rest of the documentation that's required. But you must remember that the city forestry people will also be commenting on the lot grading and servicing plan. And we have to do that as part of the conditions for the easements.
Okay. All right. And speaking of conditions, where are we here? You're aware of the conditions that are requested by the city of Ottawa. And that's cash in lieu, proof of demolition of an existing dwelling, independent services, grading and drainage plan, a joint use and maintenance agreement, notice on title for flooding, slope stability report, letter permission from owner of boundary tree, which I imagine they'll be getting shortly since they've already agreed with your applicant, and a tree planting plan. So you're aware of those and a confirmation of approved minor variance application no longer subject to appeal. Then registered reference plan confirming frontage and lot area of the severed lands. And then electronic registration and preparation documents for certificate of official. So I know you're aware of those requested conditions. We're also aware of the fact that you disagree with condition 1, 2, 3, and 10. So if you'd like to let us know why at this point.
Well, I can, Mr. Chair. So number one, normally, because this is not a severance, we find that number one is not appropriate at this time. If we're not coming in for the consent for the easement, there would be no requirement for that condition. However, it's not, call it not a deal breaker. The other one, though, the last one is if you read number 9 and number 10, you'll see they actually sound like they're exactly the same thing. So I had some difficulty understanding that. And then number 3 refers to severed and retained parcels. And since there is no severance or retained parcel happening on this project, it's simply a matter of getting consent for an easement. We can't see how number 3 is necessary.
And item number 2 was the proof of demolition of existing dwelling.
Yes, Mr. Chair, the new changes to the demolition control bylaw, make that one generally moot, but it's not a condition that is a problem because it gets waived automatically as part of the changes that were made to the demolition control bylaw about a month ago.
Right, but staff like to explain to us why 1, 2, 3, and 10 are still needed, if they are.
Thank you, Mr. Blatherwick. Staff would agree with the applicant in terms of condition number 1.
Being eliminated?
Eliminated, yes, sorry.
Okay.
And sorry, and the other one is number 2.
Proof of demolition of existing dwelling.
Yes, that one could be removed as well.
Okay. And number 3, the confirmation of independent services.
Sorry, I think Ms. O'Connell is online and will speak to condition number 3.
Ms. O'Connell, please.
Thank you, Mr. Blatherwick. I just wanted to go through these one at a time and give some assistance to Ms. Horn. The condition for cash in lieu of parkland, although it could be removed from this particular severance application, it's just to caution the applicant, cash in lieu would still be applied at the building permit stage. We just like to apply it at the earliest possible opportunity. But we take his point that this is an easement application and not a consent. So if the preference and it's to the committee's approval to remove that, that's fine. The second condition for the demolition of the building, I would suggest that's still related to the request for easement because the requested easements travel over directly where that existing building lies. And so we'd request that condition remain, condition 2 for the demolition of the building, because that should be proven before an easement can be established. The separate servicing, we would be, if these are separate lots, in fact, then we would be seeking that proof at the time of building permit regardless, like if these are 2 separate lots on file right now. And so there's not an issue with that condition being removed per chance. It's just, again, similar to condition 1, it will be reviewed at the building permit to ensure that the servicing is not crossing the existing property lines.
We can delete that now without any problems in future.
That's right.
Okay.
And the final condition that was an issue?
I think Mr. Giacazzi indicated number 10, which on my list is the confirmation of approved minor variance application no longer subject to appeal, which doesn't make a lot of sense.
I think he may have been referring to the tree planting conditions.
Yeah.
I'd have to defer to our colleague in forestry to address what the distinction is between those 2 separate conditions for the foresters.
Still there, Ms. Young?
Yes, sorry, I was not the forester on this file, so I'm just catching up. I think we have in the past combined the two to have the wording that the tree planting condition will provide all required compensation trees and or 1 tree per lot. So, I mean, in this case, if it's not a severance, then the 1 new tree per lot thing doesn't really apply. So I don't have the report up right now, but I think the one we would want to retain is the one that refers to all necessary compensation trees. Does that make sense from what you're seeing?
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
No problem.
Okay. All right, thank you. Okay. We're a little clearer on the conditions, what stays and what goes. We have, I believe, I know we do, we have several applicants or several individuals who would like to speak to the application. Just looking for my list. Where are we here? Yeah. Somehow lost it. All right. All right. We have 4 neighbors, I believe, who would like to speak to this. Mr. And I'm going to probably mispronounce your name. Mr. Subza, if you're there. Yeah. With a name like Blatherwick, you can understand how many times my name and your name have probably been misspelled or mispronounced. Yeah. Did I get that right?
Yeah, it's Shoopsta.
Okay.
Yeah, so my name, Christopher Shoopsta, 255 Bradley Avenue,
Okay.
the direct neighbor to the left of the property.
Okay.
So good afternoon, members of the committee. Thank you very much for providing me the opportunity to speak with you today. This is an issue that's deeply concerns me, and as I'm the direct neighbor to the property in question, the decision to make here will have lasting impact on my family, our community, and the character of the neighborhood. First and foremost, I strongly oppose the proposed variance for this property. As noted, it seeks approval for larger size and a steeper driveway. I don't believe these changes are keeping it in with the existing scale and nature of this existing community, as well as the aesthetic of the area. The request for a steeper driveway is particularly concerning as it poses a safety risk and practical challenges. In winter, our street is one of the last ones to be plowed. There's been multiple occasions. There's been at least one occasion that I can name of where I've had to call into the city because there was so much snow that the garbage removal could not come down our street to remove it in a timely fashion. There's multiple issues regarding that. And then with that steep driveway, though it is heated, they still need to dispose of the snow somewhere. So that's just additional difficulties where a lot of people are already putting snow on the roads. Additionally, the proposal would allow for a total of 12 units, but only 4 parking spaces. As noted by the applicant, there's no requirement for the parking spaces. However, I have spoke to my neighbors around this. I actually spent October 13th, so the Sunday of Thanksgiving, going around door to door speaking to them about this application. The list of signatures are individuals that oppose at least some aspect of this. One common aspect that they opposed is the concern for the lack of parking. The parking in our area is used for people who do carpooling because it's so close to transit, as well as with the local Wabano Center. So there is very rarely street parking available. With adding a total of 8 units, there's total 12 units, net 8 potential parking spots. Not being opposed, these people are not going to have anywhere to park. I understand the rationale behind not having parking required. I don't think that I think that should be reconsidered in this situation. Beyond the practical concerns about parking traffic, I also believe that it does not fit with the overall aesthetic and character of our neighborhood. The proposed size of the building and the increase in density would drastically alter the feel of the neighborhood. I understand the desire for growth and development, and it's important that any changes in the neighborhood be done in a way that respects its current character and scale. I feel as this proposal as it stands will disrupt the harmony that makes our neighborhood so special. In closing, I respectfully ask the committee reconsider this variance proposal. I've listed some concerns here, and I know that my neighbors will be speaking after me on very similar ones. And I urge you to take into account the practical, safety, and aesthetic concerns of our community when making a decision. It is possible to plan for growth in a way that respects the needs for the existing residents, and I believe this development in its current form does not strike that balance. Thank you once again for your time and consideration. And I appreciate the opportunity to present my concerns.
Thank you. Any questions from the member of the panel to the presenter? Okay. All right. Thanks very much. We now have on our list as well a Julie Subri.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep. Hi there.
Okay. Hi, sorry. My communications is very difficult here. I'm in a government building, so Zoom is not very secure, so I have to use cell phone only. Yes, I do have very
for the record, could you give us your address, please?
Yes, my name's Julie Sigri. I'm at 247 Bradley Avenue, so I'm just about 4 doors down the proposed construction plan that they're. I am in agreement with Chris. I do not. Chris Zuba, my neighbor, I do not approve of this proposal. I don't think the size of apartments will be attractive to families, and because that's what he said in his proposal, that he wants to attract families, but there's no yard for kids either. And I'm also concerned this has just caused the problems that are already there to increase and devalue the rest of the properties on the street as well. No room for kids to play. The apartments are really, really small, and considering that 3 blocks down, you've got 3 developments of over 1,500 apartments with large, like, amenities and everything around. So why would you go there in a tiny little 12 apartment building with no parking? And the slope that they are proposing with the garbage at the bottom, how are they going to get that out of there? Garbage trucks cannot turn on our street. It backs into the street and drives straight out. And nobody's going to be able to push a dumpster up that 12% incline. So I don't even think that's a realistic idea that he's proposing there. And also the aesthetic doesn't meet the character. What was that? Oh yeah, and the garbage too for 12 apartments. We already have a health and safety issue with rats and raccoons. The densification that he is proposing, a single house to 12, that's times 12, is not reasonable for the services that we have in this neighborhood. And saying that we can rely on everything is going to develop, but where is it going to develop is my question. When we talked about parking at the last meeting when he adjourned, he said, well, we're planning to do things like in Europe where they have communal parking. Well, where is it going to be? We have no LRT in our neighborhood. We only have a bus that can't meet the demand already. So where are these people going to transit to, and how, with a service that's not enough for this neighborhood already? Densification in this neighborhood is only going to increase the problems, ghettoize our neighborhood, and bring the value of our properties and neighboring properties down. As for the trees, that he said it's not a requirement to have the extra tree. We're underneath a bird migration, so that's removing habitat for them, although it might help the problems with the rats and raccoons and squirrels. But still, it's not making the problem easier on the street. We, like I said, sorry, I don't have my thing in front of me. I'm trying to remember everything I wrote in my document to pass it on. The health and safety, it doesn't meet the character, so even though, and that's pretty much what I can remember right now. Sorry, guys.
That's okay.
Do you have any questions?
We have a précis of your comments on our comment sheet.
Mm-hmm.
That's fine. Anything else?
And like, yes. I was just going to add to, like, I have also called personally the city multiple times for clearing out snow so the garbage truck can pass as well. So clearing out storm drains and stuff like that, so to help reduce the flooding in the spring. And this past winter on our street, they had to do emergency repairs twice at the other end at Montfort for the large building that is there, because there's been issues with underground services there. So, and I think also that now the residents, because I think this is an abuse of the intent of the law, of the zoning, we're not going to have to submit a request to have this zoning limited on size and density and height now to protect the neighborhood. And everybody on this street has been renovating their houses, increasing densification. Single family homes are now becoming either duplex or triplex. So what is the need for this single family home to become a 12-plex is my question. Anyways, thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions, comments from the members of the panel to the resident that just presented? No? Okay. Thank you. And we have is Mr. Cormier there? He's on the line as well.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, Mr. Cormier.
Yes, thank you. I thank the panel for permitting me to speak. I have submitted a 2.5-page document, which I understand you have.
Yes, we do.
And I just want to kind of summarize what I've written. Basically, to me, this is a development project, and the project is too dense and is providing. Mr. Yarosky was saying, well, his project provides gentle intensification. Well, I'd like to know what that means, but as Julie just said, you're turning what was a one residence and had, for my understanding, turned into a small triplex, and you're going to 12 units. It's well over the 40% target that Ottawa wants for intensification. So Bradley Street is that portion of Bradley Street has been a micro neighborhood for 60 years. As far as I'm concerned, I was there when I was 8. I'm now 70, so I have quite a bit of experience. When Mr. Yarosky is saying, well, there's going to be significant changes to that neighborhood. Well, if it is, it has occurred, and don't take me wrong, I'm not against modernization and adding people, but I just think that's just too much for that area. The concern of Julie and of the previous speaker about the infrastructure is certainly a fact. I don't recall in 60 years that they've ever done any changes to any of the infrastructure, such as the sewers, the water lines. Maybe I'm wrong. I haven't been there myself for 60 years, but I still own the building at 252 Bradley, which is 50 feet away from that property. As far as considering this seems to be a development project, then it should meet all the zoning laws and not require variances. But I guess that I'm leaving that to the committee to decide whether that's correct or not. I've listed a number of the issues of which some of the previous speakers have discussed. I think the two major ones will be the water management. The rainwater management is going to be significant because in the past, in those properties, not just that one, several other ones, where when there's a lot of water, it floods the bottom part and then goes into the next door, the back neighbors of all these people. So I think that's significant. The whole issue of snow is where is it going to put any of the snow? I mean, at one point, if he has a driveway, he has to plow it, and it's not going to happen. It's going to be well over. So from my perspective, this is too big, too intense, and it something different should be proposed for that property.
Right.
I thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Cormier. Any questions or comments on Mr. Cormier's presentation from the members of the panel? Oh, okay. Thank you very much.
Member Coakley has his hand up.
Mr. Coakley, please.
Yeah, maybe just on this issue of the driveway and the slope. Perhaps Mr. Yalkowski can confirm this for me, and this might go some way to alleviating some of the concerns that have been expressed. I live in a house that has a heated driveway. The driveway heating system does actually melt, not instantly, but over the course of a reasonable period of time. The heating system does actually melt the snow on my driveway, and does not require me to put any snow on other than what the snowplow might have left at the end of the driveway. It does not require any snow going onto city property, or anywhere else for that matter. Mr. Yalkowski, it's my understanding that if this driveway were to be approved, you would have to provide a heating mechanism. Is that correct, or am I misinterpreting?
Mr. Chair, yes, so we're required to provide a heating driveway with a 12% slope. We did not seek a variance from that aspect of the now I've forgotten the private approach bylaw. The other thing I should say is that we have one lane for two properties with this. So we are actually, rather than creating two lanes on two properties, we're creating one lane. So we're actually not changing at all, because currently there's one driveway on the joint property. We're not currently changing the snow circumstance on the main street in terms of having snow to remove. We won't have snow to remove, and we have just the one driveway.
Thank you very much to you, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much, Mr. Yalkowski. Again, I understand some of the other concerns that are being expressed by residents. I'm not, don't wish to dismiss them, but I did think it was important to just get on the record that the snow being plowed shoveled onto the road is probably not an issue under the circumstances.
Thank you, Mr. Coakley. Our final speaker who's online is Nishan Lutful.
Hi.
Hi there.
Thank you so much, Chairman and the board. Really appreciate it this time.
And your address is what, sir?
My address is 250. I'm the owner of 250 Bradley Avenue.
250?
Right across 250
Okay.
Bradley.
All right, thank you.
I'm right across that.
Please proceed.
So yeah, like I totally agree with all the concerns of all of my neighbors here, in terms of parking and in terms of garbage collection. Like there has been like a lot of issues that we had like with the snow collections in this neighborhood. Like there were times like even I had to call the city to get the snow removed. Since we have a cul-de-sac, so the garbage collection and the snow collection is always a big thing. And then on top of that, like if all these units comes in, that would be like what's the plan for that? And then for the I thought I saw like there was something for the tree in the map, but if the big mature tree is due for getting removed, then the bird migration as Julie indicated, I don't know how will that occur. So on one hand, the bird will get migrated, and on the other hand, we are basically welcoming the rodents with all the new garbages. So and how will that gentrify the area? That will be something that would be nice to know. And in terms of the heated driveway, that that looks like an innovative solution that the snow will get melted, but then the property is just situated with a big retaining wall separating it from the property at the rear. So there is a big descent and then a big retaining wall, and then the property at the rear is at the bottom. So now if all this snow is continuously getting melted and like directing at the back of the property, then there is continuous melting and freezing going on. So then will there be like big icicles coming out to the rear of the property, and we'll be sending them Christmas gifts with icicles. So those are some of the things. And then another thing is that there is a lot of balconies, from what I understand, which is a really great thing in terms of everyone getting more open space. But then the property is like bigger height than the surrounding properties. So how does that affect the privacy of the neighboring neighbors? So these are just some of my concerns. And another thing is the parking is a very big concern because this street is always packed. And if this is intended as a family rental, then families will have a car mostly, like, and where will all these cars be parked? And yeah, so that will be like some of the big things. So thank you.
For the committee's information, while we have you online, what are the parking restrictions on Bradley? Are there any?
Is it a question directed towards me or the applicant?
You're a street resident.
I believe there's a 2-hour restriction, and then this restriction is even on the weekends, which is a little bit more restrictive than all the other streets because the other streets don't have the weekend restriction. And then there is a street permit possible, but then the street permit will be basically like in the winter, there is a snow ban, and then you cannot have the parking on the street. And in this snow ban situation, where will all those cars go? Like, will all the cars be parked in that heated driveway, blocking all the other cars? If that's the solution that everyone is okay with, then I guess, yeah. But
So the parking on the street is allowed on both sides of the street?
No, only on one side of the street, and on the other side of the street, there is not even a sidewalk. The side of the street where this building is getting situated, there isn't even a sidewalk on that street. It's very small cul-de-sac street, and as Mr. Cormier indicated, like the characteristics has been same for quite a long time. So.
And in your assessment of the parking demand situation on Bradley Avenue, how full is that street during the course of the day and overnight as far as parked vehicles are concerned?
It's mostly full. Like it's hard to find a parking. It's pretty full. Like during the day because it is getting used by like as my other neighbors indicated, is used by Wabano, which is a commercial hub here. And other buildings are continuously having people in and out. Because they're getting like probably like delivery of their medicine or food, like things are continuously moving. So it's really hard to find a spot, and it's always busy like this, like even on the weekends. And then there's overnight parking as well on the street. So all those things are there.
Well, this is an aside, and my street has this, but you may want to take a look at guest permit parking for your street. I talked to your counselor first.
Guest parking?
Can't wait. That has we don't have anything to do with that. So I'm just suggesting that you talk to your counselor and talk to them about guest permit parking. You may be able to resolve your problems that way. Anyway, thank you very much for that.
Yeah.
For that presentation. Are there any questions for the presenter regarding his comments to the committee? No? Okay. All right. Thanks, folks. Good input. Mr. Gelacazzi, you've heard from the neighbors. They have significant objections to this proposal. How do you respond?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to say from the start, when clients come to me with properties like this, I try to look at a building typology that is more in keeping with what both the zoning bylaw permit in general, but also more in keeping with character of aspects of the community. And I mean, there's no doubt that the massing of this building, although fully complying with the zoning bylaw, is much larger than what is in this neighborhood. The R4 zones, the R4U zones are fairly new to the zoning bylaw, so they're fairly new to the area. So there's not much of a surprise that we're seeing this kind of development in Vanier in particular. Partially because it's, of course, got some great accessibility to downtown and to 15-minute neighborhood type services. To address the parking side, we looked at trying to create the 4 parking spaces deliberately because we have those 2+ bedroom units for family, and we expect them to want to have a place to put a car. And the other units are smaller. They're 1 bedroom plus type units. So the expectation is that those will be not as family related units. And that's why we have the 4 parking spaces that we were looking for. Could have tried to put, as you see with buildings like that, you'll see sometimes 3 parking spaces at the rear of each one of them. That's what you'll generally see in many of the applications that come before you for long semis. We deliberately went to the 2 because we wanted to protect more green space at the back. So that addresses sort of the parking. The topography, of course, we have to live with. It is a steeper area. Now, just to put a 12% slope in context, a 12% slope is what a wheelchair accessibility slope is permitted as. So the garbage will actually be brought from the garbage containers to be put on the street on garbage day as usual. And the benefit we have with using only 1 lane as access to both properties is that we have a total of 8.5 meters of street frontage without a lane on either side of this property for us to be able to both, as you would know, 8.5 meters would allow a parking of a single vehicle on either side. And then, of course, when garbage goes out, there's a place to put the garbage at the curb as well. In terms of the snow, as mentioned previously, it's melted. It will be pumped or will be going back into the groundwater table if the geotechnical lets us. Just so you know, and to reinforce, I mean, the city requires us to manage all our stormwater on our property and onto the right of way and not onto any neighboring properties. We actually did, and I don't know if you noticed that, we changed the building orientation a little bit. We had a bit of a drop between the 2 buildings from front to back, but because the engineer wanted to make sure that he could take all the roof water and bring it out to the front, to the street side, we leveled those two buildings up. In terms of the servicing adequacy, we've discussed that previously. My understanding again is that there were no comments and concerns from city staff with regards to the services that are there. And with regards to the side yard privacy, all the units are fully orientated so that living room and dining room and kitchens face both north and south. They do not face into side yard. And quite prepared as well on the balconies at the rear to put up a privacy screen on the side adjacent to the neighboring properties. So to sum up, believe that the project definitely meets the 4 tests. We're really only looking for 2 minor variances for lot area. The buildings fully conform with the zoning bylaw, will fully conform with all the aspects, and we're sort of going ahead of the curve a little bit to make sure in the end result to size and do the necessary work to convince the city that the stormwater can be managed. We're going to have to pretty much effectively do a stormwater management plan. Thank you.
Out of curiosity, Mr. Gelkowski, when you're talking privacy screens, and you're talking privacy screens for the rear balconies?
Correct.
And what about opaque balustrades across the length of those balconies?
Apologize, Mr. Chair, you're talking about facing the rear property?
Yeah, the actual balustrades, where you're going to put up glass or
there would be balustrade type balconies, but I should say that there is a significant vegetative separation between properties to the rear. That's what we're trying to retain as well. So, I mean, I haven't seen any issues around privacy towards the rear of the property, but I agree with the comments made by neighbors that, they don't want them looking bad. We have a full rear yard setback. It's I think it's 8.6 meters in terms of depth, the rear yard setback requirement, so.
And this committee in the past has imposed privacy, the installation of privacy screens on those types of balconies at 2 meters and opaque.
Yes, we'd be okay.
Yeah. So that works. People are happy with that. It doesn't separate them from the noise, but okay. Any other comments regarding the
Just a last comment with regards to the 3-bedroom units are actually, so they're quite unique in the sense that you enter at the grade, you have a bit of an area at the grade for the 3-bedroom units where you can store things. Then you go up a set of stairs and you actually have a small area at the 2nd floor level that can function as a study or that other type of stuff. And then you go up to the 3rd floor level where there's the 2 bedrooms plus units. So the upper units are unlikely to be filled with, I'll call it rowdier people. They're more family style units. So the family style units are actually higher up.
All right. Any further comments or questions to Mr. Gelkowski from the members of the panel? Any other concluding commentary, Mr. Gelkowski, or are you done?
I'm done. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. It's been long.
Thank you, Mr. Gelkowski. I think what we'll do in this instance is reserve our decision on this application, and you will receive your notice of our decision a week Friday. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair and panel.
Thank you. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we have reached the end of our agenda and are therefore adjourned.